A list of history's most influential people would be incomplete without Sir Isaac Newton. His laws of motion shape almost everything we experience today, from how cars run to how a baseball flies. But behind his genius was a hidden, complicated side that emerges as we follow his story. Newton was born on Christmas Day in 1642 in the small English village of Woolsthorpe Manor. His father, an literate farmer, had died 3 months earlier. Newton arrived prematurely, so tiny he was later told he could have fit inside a quart mug. His survival was nearly a miracle. When he was 3, his mother remarried and moved away, leaving him with his grandparents. That early abandonment deeply wounded him. Later, he wrote a list of his childhood sins, including one chilling memory, threatening my father and mother Smith to burn them and the house over them. From a young age, Newton was far more interested in gadgets and mechanical puzzles than in making friends. At 9, he carved a sundial. At 12, he entered the King's School, where his signature still remains on a windowsill. After his stepfather died, his mother tried to pull him out of school so he could become a farmer, a future he dreaded. Thankfully, his schoolmaster convinced her otherwise, setting Newton back on the academic path that later brought him to Cambridge in 1661. He paid his way by working as a valet. Newton studied ancient Greek philosophers, but often challenged their ideas. In a notebook, he wrote in Latin, "Plato is my friend, Aristotle is my friend, but my best friend is truth." Finding truth through experimentation became his mission. His undergraduate years were quiet, but soon fate intervened. In 1665, shortly after he earned his bachelor's degree, the bubonic plague swept across Europe, killing roughly 1 in 4 people in London. Cambridge shut down, forcing Newton to return home for nearly 2 years. Those years would become some of the most productive in scientific history. During this period, he used a prism to show that white light contains all the colors of the rainbow, disproving the long-held belief that color came from mixing black and white. To further support his ideas, he built a reflecting telescope, which used mirrors instead of lenses. This produced clearer images and was certainly safer than the time he pushed a sewing needle into his eye to see how it affected his vision. Outside his home stood an apple tree, the famous one. Though the story of the apple falling on his head is likely a myth, Newton did wonder, could the same force that pulls an apple downward also reach the moon? He concluded that gravity was universal, the same force governing both falling fruit and planetary orbits. Mathematics couldn't fully support this idea at the time, so Newton invented a tool that could: calculus. This sparked a long-standing feud. When German mathematician Gottfried Leibniz published his own calculus work in 1684, Newton insisted he had developed it decades earlier. Because Newton had kept his notes private, trying to avoid criticism, the dispute turned ugly. As president of the Royal Society, Newton influenced the Academy to side with him. Today, most historians agree the two developed calculus independently. After the plague subsided, Newton returned to Cambridge in 1667 as a fellow. He worked so obsessively that he often forgot to eat. By his mid-20s, he held one of the most prestigious academic positions in the world, the Lucasian Professorship of Mathematics, a chair later held by Stephen Hawking. Students mattered little to him. On at least one occasion, when no one attended his lecture, he taught an empty room. His true passion was research. In 1687, Newton published Principia Mathematica, one of the most important scientific works ever written. In it, he presented his law of universal gravitation and his 3 laws of motion. Objects remain at rest or in uniform motion unless acted upon by a force. More mass means more force is required for acceleration, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction. These principles still define modern physics. Yet Newton wasn't only a scientist. He wrote even more words on theology than on physics. He believed the Bible held a hidden code revealing natural law and even predicted the apocalypse would occur in 2060, though he added it could happen later. He envisioned war, destruction, and finally the second coming of Christ. Newton kept his theological writings secret, and they remained unknown until 1936 when Sotheby's auctioned them. A Jewish scholar purchased the collection and later donated the 7,500 handwritten pages to the State of Israel. His views were unorthodox. He rejected the Trinity and fought against King James II's attempts to Catholicize universities. This political resistance led to a brief role in Parliament, though he reportedly said almost nothing except asking for a window to be closed. Another hidden side of Newton was his obsession with alchemy. For 25 years, he studied the mythical art of turning metals into gold, even copying a recipe believed to help create the philosopher's stone. His experiments may have poisoned him. Tests on his hair after his death revealed high levels of mercury, which could explain his mental collapse in 1693. During that period, he hallucinated, accused close friends of plotting against him, suffered insomnia, and battled deep depression. Afterward, he left Cambridge and moved to London, where he helped reform the Royal Mint. He improved coin production through scientific precision and personally pursued counterfeiters, some of whom were executed. In his later years, Newton grew increasingly concerned with controlling his legacy. He feuded bitterly with fellow scientist Robert Hooke, who claimed credit for inspiring Newton's ideas on gravity. Newton is believed to have destroyed the only known portrait of Hooke while leading the Royal Society. But his legacy prevailed. In 1705, Queen Anne knighted him, making him Sir Isaac Newton. He never married, rarely sought company, and lived almost entirely through his work. Newton died in his sleep on March 20, 1727, and was buried in Westminster Abbey. His tomb reads, "Here lies that which was mortal of Isaac Newton." His influence, however, lives on. The poet Alexander Pope captured this perfectly in his famous lines. "Nature and nature's laws lay hid in night. God said, 'Let Newton be,' and all was light." Stress with purpose builds you. Boredom breaks you.